Welcome back to the Infinity One podcast. Today I'm joined by someone who's not just built companies, but he's built systems that allow them to thrive without him. Scott Richards. He is a three times founder, longtime CEO, and one of the most trusted advisors to high growth founders looking to scale with sanity at the same time. He's helped business owners across the $10 million to $100 million range systematize operations, empower leadership teams, and prepare for exits, all without losing clarity, profitability, or peace of mind as well. Scott, thank you so much for coming on the show and the podcast. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you for having me.
So Scott and I, we actually met 2 days ago at the Kin event, and he was giving a lecture about how to scale your business and how to grow your business without burnout, and how to systematize your business and how to ultimately optimize yourself for to have the freedom, because that is what we truly want. We don't want to have burnout and we don't have freedom. So for those of you guys who don't know Scott, I'll let him introduce himself, and just Scott, give us a little bit about your background.
Okay, so Scott Richards, I was a CEO for over 26 years. I exited a company called Dial 800 in 2017. At a very nice exit. I started running it in 1996. And for the first 10 years running the company, it was highly dysfunctional until I decided, after a major deal that I had done and distributed millions of dollars to my shareholders, that I wanted to grow the company, but at the time I didn't know how. So I hired a chief operating officer, and over the next 10 years, we tripled the size of the company and had a very, very nice exit. And then during that time, I was running a company. When I was the CEO of Dial 800, I also built an ISP, an internet service provider, a dial-up internet at the time. There was no high speed, and that was the major deal that I had done. So over that time, I started learning. Actually, I learned the most after I left being a CEO. I was fascinated with running companies and saying, "Gee, I was probably like many CEOs, which is not trained. How did I run a company? The best I could. How did I have meetings? The best I could. There are many things I didn't do right." And so I really voraciously ate up all of the amazing information from a thought leader named Mark Abbott on a company called 90.io, and got a coach, Scott Abbott, his brother, and really learned this in the context of my life and me running companies. So I guess we'll get more into that. But after we sold Dial 800, I built another company called Call Delivery Systems. And that was a company that was lead gen based on misdialed phone calls. I could talk more about that if you would like. In any event, and then I built a final research company called Reconnect Research, who did survey research for the departments of health for New York and for Florida and Louisiana during the COVID period, to find out how many people had COVID, how many people were masking, and things like that. So that's a brief background. I teach a class called, for fun, called Date Your Wife for Life, to help men have happier marriages. I love helping create people be happy. And I think that's one of the big things in work, that we find a lot of unhappiness. And I'm hoping to have a small effect to hopefully change that.
Amazing. That's a super cool background, Scott. And I have two follow-up questions regarding that. So can you dive in a little bit more into lead gen? You said you wanted to mention that. And then also, you said that you learned the most being not being a CEO, when you were outside of that role. So can you dive a little bit more into that?
Sure. So lead gen, we'll start with the first question first. And that is, so at one period of time during Dial 800's existence, early 2000s, we were a SaaS company. We had about 45 employees, and we built software for call tracking, call routing, and we had all these memorable toll-free numbers. And since I had hired Jim in the second 10 years of my existence running the company, I had a lot of time to be the visionary, to actually have time to think. I wasn't in the operations. That's what I teach founders how to do. Get out of the operations so you could really make a big impact. And so one day, I called Chris, my telecom manager, and I said, "How many calls are we getting to our non-working toll-free numbers, ones that are not being advertised?" Now we had thousands of them, ones that spelled words like 1-800 credit card or 1-800 mothers. Uh, and other ones that are just easy digits to remember, like 800-555-1000, easy repeater digits. And since our clients were radio and television advertisers, you have a 60-second radio ad, you have to remember the number real quick. So that's basically what our business was. So anyhow, so Chris came back to me and says, I got 150,000 people accidentally calling our numbers. I said, really? So I called up a buddy of mine that was in direct response, a guy named Lance O'Brien. And I said, Lance, do you have any good offers that I could make a professional recording? And maybe somebody who was accidentally calling one of our numbers would actually buy something. So he says, yeah, I actually have a client that does a cruise from Palm Beach, Florida to the Grand Caribbean islands. And let's try that. So I put a offer on, say, hey, you misdialed the number. Would you like a cruise? And a little pitch on the cruise. And if you're interested, push one and go to the operator. So from the day I put that on, we started making money. It blew my mind that people were accidentally making calls and that they would buy something. So that's what started. To make a long story short, we built an entire platform that had not only our numbers, but all of my friends in the toll free business and all kinds of phone numbers. We called everybody who brought numbers in suppliers. And then we built the platform in the middle that basically decided which buyers or advertisers would get the calls. And we were cruises and insurance and all kinds of things. And in real time, our platform would make those decisions. And we made a lot of money, millions. Um, and by the time I sold the company, we had about 10 million calls coming in every month. To put that in perspective, that means we were getting about 2,000 misdialed calls a minute. All right, so that's the lead gen thing. And by the way, that really led into Reconnect Research, which I can speak to afterwards. But let me answer your questions in order. Your second question was a little bit more about Dial 800. What was the second question? Give it to
My,
me.
my second question was about you said that you mentioned that you learned most of your CEO
Yes.
skills outside of being a CEO.
Yes. So after we sold Dial 800, and I had spent 10 years in the audience listening to Jim, my chief operating officer, running meetings and how he, really organized things. And I thought it was pretty amazing until I started looking into actually, well, like, are there frameworks or systems on actually how to run really good businesses? So I originally looked at EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System. A guy named Gino Wickman, 30 years ago, wrote a book called Traction. And I went to the site and I started looking and reading and says, well, gee, maybe I'll learn this system. But some things about it I wasn't so crazy about. I love the system. I think the framework's a great system, but there's some issues that I just didn't like so much. But when I was on that website, I found another company called 90, 90.io, and they have an amazing library. And I just started getting lost in this thing. And I started calling them all the time and saying, I love this stuff, and how much better I could have run a company. And I said to them, do you have uh, I really want more advanced training. He says, well, the founder's brother, Scott Abbott, has been a coach for many years. He's actually starting an academy called Boss Up Academy. And maybe you could join that. So that's exactly what I did. And that's where I spent 3, 4, 500 hours studying all of this stuff in context of me running companies. So I would learn about how to have killer meetings, and I realized mine weren't killer; they were not so good, right? And I think that there's a book. Pat Lencioni wrote a book called Death. I think it's called Death by Meetings. And meetings are one of are this should be the central hub of an organization. And if you have really good meetings that follow five core structures, you can get a lot done. The last piece of a meeting, by the way, is everybody rates the quality of the meeting. I thought that was brilliant. So anyway, so that's it. So when you learn something in context of you having lived it before, it's a different kind of learning. It's not a theoretical learning. I've hired tons of people. I've fired not as nearly as many because we really kept people. I've had lawsuits. I've had sales. I've worked with investment bankers. I've kind of been the whole scope three times. And so when I was learning this stuff, I was saying, that's how you do it. And so there are nine things that I teach over. It's called the nine core competencies. And a framework is just simply how you do something. And that's called a business operating system. It's just a system to operate a business. That's all it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember you mentioned that over at when you were giving your speech about the what is it? The nine core competencies, and it was on vision, customer, goal, structure, people, data, meetings, process, and exit, if I'm not mistaken.
You got it.
Yeah, that's amazing. So Scott, I want to see like how do these nine core competencies, how can they help like an early stage founder? Because an early stage founder is wearing a lot of different hats and they're doing everything at once. So is it like I'm just a little bit confused as to how they can help a founder.
Absolutely. So the real need of this system is when you get to 10 or more employees. Because when you get to 10 or more employees, and again, that's an arbitrary number. Could it be eight? Could it be 15? But you get the idea. Things start getting complicated. And I'm going to address your question, but I'm also going to put it in context. So imagine a boat, a crew boat, one that has like a lot of people, each rowing, and you have like 10 people, and you have the guy in front like saying row. Well, imagine if you can visualize that for a moment, and you had 10 guys who are rowing, five on one, 10 people, could be women too, five on one side, five on the other side. Now, three of those people were rowing really hard, right? The other seven were not rowing so hard. What happens to the boat? Do you win the race? You don't win the race. Well, that is the state of the current affairs of the workforce. As I pointed out, Gallup says, and Gallup is the largest survey research, one of the largest survey research companies in the world, that 7 out of 10 employees are not engaged, meaning they don't love working. And that means that things are not moving nearly as smooth or as fast. And most of that responsibility is on the founder, the owner, the manager, right? The guy who's running this thing. All right. So your question is about early stage. Let's say you're just one guy in a garage, right? Right. That's you. A guy in the garage trying to build something. Do you need a whole business operating system? No, but you do need parts of it. Okay. For instance, vision. You absolutely need to start trying your best to get clear on vision and the components that make up vision. Do you need to pay and to have a whole system? No, you could do it on a Google spreadsheet or in a Word document. Okay. So when you get bigger, you need to really have a system. 90.io, I don't work for them, but I love them. They're much better than a spreadsheet. It really is a place that everybody can organize, all the data can be kept, and where we're working on the business, which is, as you were saying, vision, customer, goals. So let's just talk about vision, customer, and goals. Okay, so what are the components of vision that a solopreneur should have? Okay. So there are four areas in the vision that are forever agreements. Now, when you're a solopreneur, they may not be forever because you're still trying to figure out like who's my market and who's the product fit. But you should write down something, and it can change when you're started. At a certain stage, when you go through, there are 5 stages of development. And at the start, you're in survival mode. Then you're in sustain. And when you get to scale, like that means you figured it out, you know who your customers and everything like that. Then at that point, you don't change these four things. So the first of those four things, what is it? Do you remember?
The first of the four core values, or what
Core
specifically?
values is one of them. So what are core values? Okay. So if for a solopreneur, not quite as important because core values are the most important thing of core values is when you bring other people on. You want those people to align with your core values. So when you bring the next employee, before you hire that next employee, it's a good idea to have thought through what are the non negotiables for you? What are your 4 to 6 things that you look up to in people that you aspire to yourself and that you building a team of people should have. So for instance, mine, I told you guys, and everybody should be different and should be deep within you, right? Mine, I have an acronym. It's called GREAT, right? The G stands for grit. That means and why did I come up with that? Because I remember many times, but one in particular, when we were doing a big deal for the New York Department of Health, we were doing a survey and we had to work all weekend. I mean, a zillion hours to get ready for the survey research thing on Monday morning. If you don't have grit, you're not going to do that. Right. And if you're going to join my team, there will be times that we need to do that. And if you come aboard, I use that in hiring, in coaching my team, and in releasing people if they don't match up with grit. So if somebody says, "Oh, look, I'm going home. It's 5 o'clock. I didn't sign up to work late." I said, "Well, do you remember when we talked about hiring? That was part of our core values, and you agreed with me. So let's have a discussion. If maybe you don't align with that, and it's okay if you don't align with that, but the people that are going to stay on this team align with that." You follow me?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes.
so grit. So then, and so reliability, excellence. And we don't have to go through mine. It's not as important. But the important thing is 4 to 6. Great idea to have an acronym so it's easy to remember. And this is something that needs to be alive, not a poster you put on the wall, right? It has to be everywhere. If you go to my website, you will see like my why statement, my compelling why. Why do I do what I do? Right? Simon Sinek talks about that. Why is way more important. This is part of your value, part of your vision. Why am I doing what I'm doing? That drives people. Emotion creates motion, as Tony Robbins talks
Tony
about.
Robbins.
Right? He didn't come up with that. In ancient Jewish texts, it says the same thing. It was written 3,500 years before Tony popularized it. Okay, so what Tony is amazing for is taking brilliant, time tested things and bringing them to the modern person so our ears can hear them, listen to them, and hopefully use them. So the why is much important than the how or the what. So, by example, uh, if you are, well, here for me, okay, why do I do what I do? What compels me to do what I do? I've sold companies. My wife didn't want me to be at home. She wanted me to get out and do something. Didn't want me to follow her around Trader Joe's. So I said, "Oh, fine, I'll do this." I love, my big why is helping create people to find purpose and happiness. I do that in everything I do. I teach a class on marriage. I try my best myself. I've been married for 40 years. I have 4 kids, 16 grandkids. I try to eat healthy, sleep well, exercise, do spiritual things, work. I try to keep a balanced life. And the people that are interested in what I'm interested in, I want them to join me. So my why is helping create happy people. And so uh, a way to do that is this framework, this 9 core competencies. And so when I put my vision statement together, that why is compelling to me. It gets me out of bed in the morning. It says, wow, maybe I have a chance to affect people, make them happy. And imagine if more people who were working felt the same.
Hmm. Yeah, that would
Yeah.
change the world for sure.
Right.
That'd be so
So
good.
another component, which is part of, which is its own competency, a vision, is your customer. Who is your ideal customer in terms of demographics, geography, psychographics, really defining and drilling down to that person. And then what is our compelling value proposition? What do we bring to the world, right? That is unique and special that people will pay us for. And do you remember I talked about there's only four of those?
There is innovation, right? Low cost,
Innovation.
brand, and service.
Good. So right. So we have innovation like Apple or Amazon. You have low cost like Walmart, and that is their value proposition. You have service, which is 40 to 50% of the gross national product. And that means that if you are a service provider of some sort, you really have to drill down what's unique and special about my service that I can lean into. Because if you're a plumber, there's a lot of other people that can fix drains. What's special about me? And that's a lot of deep thinking. And then finally, it's, as you were saying, it's brand, it's status. The category is actually called status. I couldn't remember the name, but it's brand. It's Gucci, it's Rolex, it's Bugatti Veyron, it's Ferrari, it's things like that. So you have to choose your lane. There are only four of them, and then lean into it. Those are the forever agreements. And then in the vision, there's other things that we discussed. Do you remember anything else that we discussed?
Within the vision, your BHAGs.
Your BHAGs, your goals. So goals are part of that. And so goals are what is your big, hairy, audacious goal? What do you want to be in 10 or 15 years when you grow up? What does that look like? What's your dream? Do you remember why I told you why it's important to have a dream in your vision?
Was it so that you could break it down and scale backwards? Like you have your 10-year goal and then your 5-year goal and then your 3 and then 1, and then you break it down to your 90-day plan.
Absolutely. That's one of the important things. In order to, so what do I need to do in 90 days in order to get to a 1 year, to get to 3 years, to get to that, right? And the whole world needs to revolve around your 90-day goals. And there's another big reason that I mentioned that you should have a big vision.
Mhm.
And this is to attract A players. Because an A player is going to come to a company that he feels is big enough to fulfill his dreams. Because his or her dreams, everybody that comes to you has a dream. I want to make this much money. I want to have a certain amount of independence. I want to have a certain impact in the world. And if your dream is big enough and your company's growing fast enough, you will start attracting A players. And what happens at the start, typically you do not get A players because you haven't got momentum, you're not making money, it's all a dream and a fantasy. And you may have some people that believe in your thing and maybe you'll get some decent people. But I saw as we started to really scale that the quality of our hires became better and better, right? And that's really it. So growing fast is a really great thing to get A players. And so part of your vision is to like, what does this actually look like? Okay. And then we talked about customer journey, which again, that folds in. Goals and customer are part of your vision. But since goals and customer are so important, they're a separate competency that you need to get deep on.
Hmm. That's amazing. So much insights that I want to ask you about. Can I ask you about your why? Because I know a lot of founders who are right now struggling between purpose and profitability. Should I be focused on making more money or should I focus on my purpose instead? And I know a lot of college students in the same spot as well. So could you just speak a little bit more on that?
Absolutely. You must be highly profitable. Let's not make mince words. This is business. The objective of business is to make money. Now, you can be a nice guy making money, and you can make the world a better place by making money. But don't think you can put on some Birkenstocks and sing kumbaya in little circles and not work really hard. I worked really, really hard. When I first started working as a stockbroker in the mid 80s, 86, I worked 10, 12-hour days. I remember the manager says, if you really want this job, you're going to check out of the world for about 2 years, and you're going to put your head down. You're going to work hard. And when I went to Wall Street uh, in '86 in rookie training, there was 100 people in my class. He said, "Look to the right of you and look to the left of you. Those people won't be here in a year." Most people don't have the discipline to be able to really work to get something done. It takes, as Malcolm Gladwell in his book Outliers, it takes about 10 years to become really great at anything. So for those Gen Zers out there and whatever the next gen is, I'm talking to you from a guy that I started working when I was 15. I'm 63, right? I've put in a lot of hard time, a lot of work, right? A lot of late nights and weekends and all these things. And eventually, after many, many years, I had the big glass office. I had a lounge chair, a lounge area. I was overlooking Westwood in UCLA. I had my own bathroom, my own refrigerator, and I didn't have to speak to the employees because I truly became the visionary. But you don't become the visionary. Don't anybody think, I mean, look at Elon Musk. The guy works like a maniac, right? Um, and Steve Jobs. So don't think you can cruise, and you do not choose between just doing good and doing good. You'll be poor, and money is the fuel that enables you to do good, right? So it's not choosing one or the other. But when I ran Dial 800, we were kind to people. We paid people well. I believe truly that we put so much food on so many people's plates because our clients were advertising. And if we could make their advertising 25% more profitable, that means they sold more stuff. If they sold more stuff, their company is more profitable. That means they had more money to distribute to themselves and their employees, which then they took and spent and made the economy better.
Hmm, that's amazing. Scott, I want to ask you this. Um, what are some of the biggest mindset shifts that founders have to make if they really want to scale successfully and exit? And this is in terms of like delegation and letting other people, take a higher role than them. And correct me if I'm wrong on this quote, but isn't it true that a true leader, he's like someone who is able to take a seat back and he allows other people to become leaders themselves? I don't know if you've heard of that before, but
So I will tell you absolutely what I believe are very strong key traits in amazing leaders. And you can also read, and I highly recommend your audience read Jim Collins' Good to Great. And he talks about great leaders. He tracked 12 companies, did a lot of research. It's a seminal work, and many of these leaders are extremely humble people. So I think humility is a very, very important trait of a great leader, knowing that you don't know everything. And to be in if you're humble, then you can be, in Hebrew we call it a mukabel. In English, that means somebody who can receive, can and if you feel that you're a student, you can always learn, and you can learn and improve and grow, then you can take instruction. Now, another key trait is trust. And I love the quote that Ronald Reagan said, it's trust and verify. During the Cold War with Gorbachev, and it was the de-escalation of the nuclear weapons, he said, we trust you, Gorbachev, but we need to send in people to verify that you actually got rid of your nuclear weapons that you said you would. In business, how do we trust and verify? We have systems in place. We have key performance indicators. We have goals. So I can let go because every week we're going to have a meeting. Did you do the things that you said you would do? If we have a high trust environment where we make agreements, and remember we discussed this, that we make agreements all day long. I agreed to be here on your show. I agreed to show up. I agreed to speak. You agreed to interview me, right? So we upheld that agreement. You and I now have a higher level of trust for one another. Higher levels of trust, right, is what you want in a really great company where people feel safe to to be able to express their opinions that match up with the goals, the visions of the company, and have a real discussion, hard discussions, whether it's with your manager or your peer or anything, if you feel that somebody is not doing something that will go towards achieving that mission. So humility, being able to learn and be a student, to be trust but verify by having good systems in place and having agreements that build trust. Because when I say I'm going to be there at 5, you can put that in the bank.
That's amazing. That's really, really great advice. And I remember you also mentioned that um, you have this other program that is called Date Your Wife for Life, correct?
Yes.
Yes. How important is trust in relationships? And could you dive deeper? You said there was, oh, I think you said there was like two of the biggest things in business relationships and personal relationships are communication and clear expectations. Is that right?
Expectations. The two
Yeah.
biggest
Yeah.
problems in all relationships, including marriage and friends and any relationships between two human beings. Of course, in a business environment, you have relationships, is communication. And everybody gets that when I speak. Oh, yeah, I got communication, but people don't get the expectations. The mislining, the mismatching of expectations between a supervisor and somebody who he or she is responsible for is the biggest cause of trouble and emotional discordance. I'm trying to think of the right word. Um, and so And a lot of that happens because management has never learned how to speak properly, not just in a nice way to people, but in a clear way. Do you remember the clear way when you want to assign somebody something? Do you remember the acronym we discussed?
I'm blanking on it.
SMART, SMART. So I'll give you an example, and I will give you what that acronym stands for. So if I said, "Okay, Zeus, I want you to take out the garbage," is that a clear instruction?
No, because it's not specific.
Right. So specific is the S of the SMART. Okay. So I need you to, M is measurable, right? Can I measure whether you took the trash out or not? Yes, we can. The trash is empty. Achievable. Do I think you can achieve taking the trash out? Absolutely. Is it relevant? Well, if we have a restaurant and we want to keep it nice and tidy, it's relevant. And if it's time bound, meaning if I said to you, would you please take out the trash by 2 o'clock today? Then it's time bound. So now we have no confusion. Now let's say as opposed to sending you a WhatsApp, and I want to make a big shout out for all young people to stop using WhatsApp and every instant message program on the world. As soon as you get something on your brain at any time of day or night and you need somebody else to do something, you shoot them a WhatsApp. That's lazy and that's destructive. Okay. Better would be to send them a permissions based to do, smartly spelled out of exactly what you want and when, and then in the 90.io system, they have what are called permission based to dos. So let's say I had something, let's just use our little example. And I came out at 11 o'clock at night, and I'm thinking, we're working in a restaurant together, and you're working with me, and I need the trash taken out by 2 because we're going to have a big party that evening. So I go on 90 and I said, okay, Zeus, would you do this? And I make it smart. And you're too busy to do it because you're doing a bunch of other things. So you get back to me and say, can't do it because I got too many things on my plate. I can either assign this to somebody or can you help me take something else off my plate? And I say, yeah, you know what? There's other 5 things you don't need to do, but the trash you need to do. Then you accept it. Is there any chance that we will have a misalignment on expectations?
No.
None at all. So the misalignment, it turns out, is because people are lazy. And WhatsApp, as much as I love it, for many things, it is terrible for giving people assignments. Stop using it for that. You will destroy your company. You'll destroy relationships. And the only person it's costing is you.
Mm, it's amazing.
Did I
Yes,
make
so
that point clear?
yes, yes, you did, sir. Let's talk. I want to dive deep into finding your why because I know you said it took you around 8 months, or was that for your vision?
That was just for my why.
That's just for your why. Yeah. So I know a lot of my friends personally, and then I know a lot of people in life still. They're having struggles when it comes to finding their why or finding their purpose in life. Why am I here? Could you just dive a little bit more into that? How you were able to find it, and some advice that you could give to them?
Okay, so this is a very deep question. And I'm going to answer it globally, and then I'm going to answer it more micro. Okay. The more micro is as it pertains to business. And so the more macro is really deep questions. I am an Orthodox Jew. I practice Torah Judaism. I teach Torah Judaism, and I've been teaching for 30 plus years. A big thing that every human being, I believe, Jewish, Christian, I don't care, religious, not religious, I don't care what you are, okay, really needs to think deeply about is why am I here? It's very existential, right? And do I have a purpose or is everything random? If you believe everything is random, then that's very depressing because you have no purpose, you have no reason to be here, and that's really sad. I think that if the Almighty made you, you have a purpose for being here. He loves you and he wants you to be here. Now, on a practical level, to figure out your why, it's something that you are drawn to. You don't have to fake being drawn to it. I love people smiling. I'm drawn to people who smile. I love people who smile. My mother, before I learned really dive deep into Torah and learning this amazing 3,500 year, by the way, Torah is just a framework on how to live a great life for if you're Jewish. If you're Christian, you've got another framework. It's the Bible. And if you're Buddhist, you have another one, right? Right? Islam, whatever it is, you have a framework. And hopefully that framework is a good, solid, time-tested framework. So, so the same thing with marriage. When I first start teaching my marriage class, the first question I ask I usually do it to 10 to 12 students, married guys, been married for whatever number of years. What's the purpose of marriage? Why are you getting married? Right? And I'm not going to go into that on this podcast, maybe for another discussion. But so your purpose in life is something you're drawn to, and you're good at it. So if you just naturally like it and you're pretty good at it, that might be an indication that that's in the genre of what your purpose is in the world. Assume that nobody was ever created just like you from the beginning of time. It is true. Nobody will ever be created that's just like you. So if you were created at this time, 2025, you're living today, you have a reason for your existence. And it's your job to try to figure that out. So, and it doesn't have to manifest itself to if you like making people happy, you don't have to do what Mother Teresa of blessed memories did. She went around the streets of Calcutta and saved poor people her whole life, and dedicate. You don't have to do that. You can do it by making a great business, by being a great tech inventor. You could do so. So the manifestation of that for me is I thought to myself, okay, my wife doesn't want me to hang around the house. What can I do? So I love teaching guys and I do these classes, and that's really my fun project. But having, thank God, having some level of success as an entrepreneur and going through a lot of years leading and running companies, and then spending 300, 400, 500 hours just in this vortex of learning how to do it much better, and my love of creating happy people and people with smiles, and then discovering that there are so many 7 out of 10 people, according to Gallup, in their engagement study, are unhappy, and about the same number of managers are unhappy, and the managers are affecting the people. I said, you know what? That's a real problem I think I can help fix. But it didn't come to me overnight. I had to stumble upon the Gallup survey. And how did I do that? Because I was thinking to myself, well, okay, these 9 core competencies are like really important, but what's the deeper reason for these? And I started thinking, and to me, I said, well, all these 9 core competencies are about creating higher levels of functionality in an organization. That means making it better and profitable, and aligning and allowing people to focus and thrive. Thrive is healthy. And so so then I did some research and I found this Gallup study, and oh my God, I can't believe this. So that really very much fed into my why. So you don't discover it like overnight, but the first 2 steps are, what do you just naturally gravitate towards, and what are you good at? The third component for business, it's a Venn diagram. Imagine these 3 circles. Where that is what is economically viable. Where did that come from? I didn't make that up. Jim Collins in his Good to Great book. But it's really a beautiful, beautiful way to figure out like what deeply, and it doesn't come overnight. I can't tell you what yours is.
Yeah.
It has to
Def-
be deeply personal. And once you do it, you have to sleep on it and you have to sit on it. And if next week it doesn't feel right, which my original ones didn't feel right, I thought they were cool, but it wasn't me. And when it's you, you wake up the next day and you say, wow, that's really me.
that's amazing. That's so, so cool. I love that answer. Yeah. I always speak about authenticity, so that ties back to it perfectly. And Scott, I want to ask you one last question. So, for any young entrepreneur or any person who wants to make a difference in the world, what would be the best piece of advice that you could give them?
Put food on other people's plates. I told that to my salesmen all the time. Don't worry about your commission. What I want you to worry about is how can you make somebody else's life better? I often ask my team, what why are people buying things from us? Why are people willing to part with their money? And if you think about that and you ask yourself the same question, the answer is pretty simple. Why do people part with their money? Because they get value. What is value? Value is made up of 2 things: quality and price. I'm willing to buy this quality at this price because I believe if I do, my life will be better. So It really is about focusing on how you can make somebody else's life better. And if you put food on somebody else's plate, you'll never be hungry.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And thank you so much, Scott, for coming on and for this entire podcast and this entire session. It was great. I loved hearing your insights and I really appreciate you, sir. Thank you.
Absolutely. Pleasure. Have a wonderful weekend. Take care.
Thank you. Likewise. Bye bye.
Okay. Bye bye.